Namalenge samalola ya samdi test legend issue yin. Taringi lenje serona ge lezen di nang. Nye dong nyu se ni da ju jing, ce ni shu zap ye dang ni shu zogu. Ni dang ni gi ring, gya gar ki ge sa, dili sa ve nang do. Gya gar ge yung pyo ki gyab gyur sok we. Sok jing ting dung be ting. Benden se yung pemba siring cho ki, unje song she na wa shik. Pyogi ninding tsampa nayin su dun shubi tsampa nipati shamla sisi yongba shu. Sagana pazu sekyong choki songshe di chasang ingi nang yinba shik redu.
दिखने में तिब्बती है मगर दिमाग और हालचाल में सब भारतीय ही है. Just to inform you about the situation in exile and some of the challenges that we face, we did a survey. Now this cabinet is very focused and very determined to focus on numbers and developing structures and systems. So whoever comes after me as Sigong should not be a problem with structures and systems. So because of which we collected a number, and because of the image and the personality of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, people believe that there must be many Tibetans in all around the world. It's not so. The exile community is only about 130,000 Tibetans in exile. And as per our latest survey, in India it's only about 68,500 now. It has come down a lot. And then Tibetans in Bhutan is about 1,500, Tibetans in Nepal a little more than 10,000. So that's only about 80,000 Tibetans out of 130,000, and 50,000 Tibetans are spread across more than 25 different countries in the West. So we see wherever there are challenges, there are opportunities. So one of the challenges that we face is the dispersing community. Many young Tibetans who can give birth to babies, who can give productive labor, they are moving out to Indian cities and towns and also to other foreign countries in the West, because there are not enough suitable opportunities, job opportunities for the Tibetans in the rural areas where the settlements are located. So it is incumbent upon us to make sure that this is also the opportunity for us to build back our compact communities. The reason why we are focusing so much on the compact communities is because in the last 63 years, because of the help of the Indian government, both at the central and state level, and with the foresightedness of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Tibetan compact communities were established in India, Nepal, and Bhutan, and because of which we started schools separately for Tibetans by the Indian government and also on our own. Not all the schools are operated by the Indian government. We have quite a number of schools that are run autonomously. So in all this, the population is coming down. The number of children is going down. This is our second challenge. So from 2012, where we had a little more than 20,000 Tibetan children, in 2021, in 9 years, it has come down to 9,700 children. We are talking about more than 1,000 children on average declining every single year. The reasons that are attributable to these consequences are because, one, less number of children coming from Tibet. So before 2008, we used to receive any number between 2,500 to 3,000 Tibetans every year from inside Tibet, most of them children, sent here to study, not knowing whether they will ever meet their families again or not. Now, in 2020, we had only 5 Tibetans from Tibet. In 2021, only 10 Tibetans. In 2022, only 4 so far from inside Tibet. This is also one of the reasons why the number of students are declining over the years. And the other reason is out-migration from India and Nepal to other countries in the West. And when the parents go, children also go with them. And the third is common to everybody in the world, where you have very low birth rate. So this is the situation right now of 130,000 Tibetans, out of which 80,000 in India, Nepal, and Bhutan, about 50,000 in the rest of the world, except inside Tibet. So we are talking about 60-40% change. So because of these two issues, now we have to think long-term for the Tibetan as His Holiness always says, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Now, hope for the best, of course, we'll be looking at every possible avenue to resolve this Sino-Tibet conflict. But at the same time, if we have to survive for another 30, 40 years, then we have to build our community. And that is one of the main focus of this cabinet, to build back compact communities. So we found that there are more than 2,000 Tibetans, families, or more than 5,000 individuals who have come from Tibet in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s who doesn't have a single inch of land because they are not provided with anything. The Indian government provided for those who came in the 60s and 70s, 60s, not after that. So these people also need to be cared for. And that also involves a lot of money to relocate these people. And I was just, before we started this meeting, I was discussing with Honorable Sujit Kumar Ji, because we have a big settlement one settlement in Odisha. Of course, you mentioned about Biju Patnaik Ji. I read about him also. The Indian government started giving importance to Tibetan army only after the 1962 war. So an office was established here in Saket in Delhi in 1964. And the Charbadia airport in Orissa was commissioned by Nehru, Pandit Nehru ji, to Biju Patnaik to turn that private airfield into a supply ground for Tibetan, for the establishment number 22, which is a special frontier force. So Biju ji had played a very important, that's what I was thinking, how come we have one settlement in Odisha? So that must have been the connection, because Biju Patnaik ji was an adventurist. He was not only a pilot, but I think he cycled from Delhi to Mumbai those days. So he was quite an active politician, not just a chief minister. He also wanted to start I think, commercial flight from India to Lhasa if things had not changed in Tibet with the Kalinga Airlines. So those developments have been there, and Odisha also we are looking at one of the destinations to move people to develop as a green village for the new people who will be moved there so that we can strengthen these. We have to think about long-term integrated programs for the Tibetans to be able to come back to the settlements and be employed there. So there are many other programs that we are talking about, but these are some of the challenges I think that you also need to understand. And we also go with a begging ball to the international community. Only 9% of our expenses are met by the Tibetans. The rest, 91%, we also go with a begging ball. So just to give you an idea of how we function and how much support would be necessary into the future, because these supports are very crucial. And then, of course, one issue that really concerns India is the environmental issue that is going on. This time, we were received in Arunachal, not only this time, my predecessor was also honored with the state guest status, this time, both in Arunachal Pradesh and Meghalaya, we were accorded the same status, and when we were going from Meo to Pasighat and Pasighat to Tuting, because that helicopter route falls on the Brahmaputra. So when you can see from the helicopter, the river that is coming from Tibet, the Siang River in Assam, in Arunachal Pradesh, is very dirty. It's like tea. It's very muddy. And all the tributaries that are joining the river are clear blue water. And this is not rainy season in Tibet. So it's not because of soil erosion that resulted because of rainwater. And this is happening because of activities inside China, inside Tibet, where China is supposed to be building this dam on the Brahmaputra, which is twice the size of Three Gorges. And if something happens to the size of that kind of a dam, then what will happen to Assam? Many will perish. So these are issues that you need not shy away from speaking about. Because China does not share hydrological data with anybody else. We call ourselves the land surrounded by snow mountain ranges. In our prayers also, just like Indresh asks us to pray every evening, we always keep saying, Kangri Rave Ko Shingham Jong. the heavenly abode, surrounded by snow mountain ranges. That is what we called ourselves. And that is the topography of Tibet. That is the geography of Tibet. And then Westerners started calling Tibet the roof of the world. I saw it in one of the books published in 1906. And then Asians called Tibet the water tower of Asia. Now Chinese environmental scientists call Tibet the third pole, because Tibet has the largest amount of glaciers and permafrost that feeds all these major rivers that go into all the South Asian and Southeast Asian countries, from Pakistan to Nepal, India, Bangladesh, to Burma, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, and into China. Two of the main rivers in China, which are the lifelines of China, one is the cradle of civilization of China, originate from Tibet. And for the first time, a few months back, we heard that Mekong's height has come down by 50%, and it is no more navigable by ship. And it has affected hydroelectricity production in the region. So these are some of the things Chinese themselves can see for themselves, by themselves. In fact, one of the reasons why Chinese started giving little importance to Tibet's environment was way back in 1998, when there was a huge flood on the Yangtze, where many properties were destroyed and many lives were also destroyed. Since then, they started giving little importance to Tibet's environment, but it's not enough. There is not an international environmental scientist studying along with Chinese environmental scientists about what is happening inside Tibet. So there's no report. There are a lot of climate changes are going on, climate change conferences are going on, but nobody is talking about Tibet. Everybody is so afraid of China. That's why I tell the Western countries, aapko gada banna hai to ban lo. Chinese will keep riding you. If you don't stand up to your values, Chinese will never ever respect you. Now India is being respected because of the position that the Indian government has taken on Ladakh or Doklam that Indresh covered. Now, of course, Indian government is very firm that till all the armies are taken back, there will not be any normalization of relationships. Just this morning also there was news about Chinese government holding conferences with so many other countries where India was not part of it. So all these developments are there. Many people believe that China is very strong. Of course, they may be strong militarily, politically, economically, but those are also, some of them are also chinks in the armor. China is the only country, let's say, in the Politburo, now they call it 1+6. Earlier it is 7 Politburo members. Now Xi Jinping will become the authoritarian ruler, where all the 6 will have to kowtow to him and listen to what he says. So he'll become a dictator, right? 1+6. China is the only country, here also I want to mention this fact that Chinese Politburo, not more than 3 members of the Politburo members can meet together without the express permission of the president. What does that imply? That implies a lot of, they are afraid of internal coup. And then Xi Jinping also made sure that generals are transferred every year. They are not allowed to sit in one place to build better relations with the cadres. That also rules out military coup to a certain extent. And China is the only country that spends more money on internal security than external security. That itself manifests deep distrust between the rulers and the ruled. So this, when on 16th October, when Xi Jinping reiterated his policy on Taiwan and also reiterated the zero COVID policy, I said in Europe, Xi Jinping is digging his own grave. And now, if you see the developments of protests, it's happening. And I've also told the international community, even to our Chinese friends many times when they talk about the life of His Holiness, I tell them, let us see whether His Holiness the Dalai Lama outlives the Communist Party or the Communist Party outlives the Dalai Lama. So, to conclude, I want to say that His Holiness has been very exuberant and very high spirit to live for another 15, 20 years, another 2 decades, even up to 110, 113. He has been assuring us, and it is on the part of the Lama that he decided to live long for the benefit of all the sentient beings and also the Tibetans in particular. But then it's incumbent, when I speak to the Tibetan population, I tell them it is up to the Tibetan population to see whether His Holiness lives that long. Because then we talk about the Guru-Shishya relationship, where the Shishya has to understand the thinkings of the Lama and perform accordingly. So it's good that you Indians want Tibet to be independent. We have no objection to that. But then ultimately, Tibet's issue has to be decided by the Tibetans depending on the reality of the situation. So whatever comes out, but right now, we are following the middle way approach. We'll stick with that approach and we'll see how best to move forward with the new techniques and the tactics that we have adopted and see what kind of repercussions are drawn from there. And if that doesn't work, then there may be other ways out in future. But as of now, as all our Indian friends keep saying, Azadi, Azadi, there is no Tibetan who doesn't want independence. But the question is, how do we achieve that? So how much support will there be from Government of India? How much support will there be from the international community for Tibetan independence? Because as was mentioned, even Buddhist countries are hesitant to support Tibetan. It's not because they don't want to support, but because they're afraid of China. They're too dependent on China. That is the only reason why it's happening. So if there are more chorus of demands for those things, then there could be change. Who knows? It will depend. For us to have encouragement also will depend a lot on how countries react. We cannot act or decide on ourselves, but it is incumbent upon us to tell the world about Tibet's history, status in Tibet, and how we look at resolving the Sino-Tibet conflict. So you as Tibet supporters, it's very important that you raise the voice. I will be very happy if you organize events in colleges and universities to spread more awareness. If there are opportunities, I would also like to come and speak to the younger generations of Tibetans, not only the Tibetan, but also the Indian population. Sometimes we wonder, we live here in India, but how many Indians know about Tibet? That's also a question. So we'll have to, with all your efforts, we have Tibetans, some 4,000 families are dependent on sweater selling for their livelihood. So you are coming from different states of India, and we do have sometimes problems with marketplaces and things like that. We will be appointing 2 people in India-Tibet Coordination Office to help out with these issues, which are quite a big problem for the Tibetans, because this is one of the main supplementary income for the Tibetans, other than agriculture, which is just 1 acre dry land. So it's any help in those sectors would also be very, very highly appreciated. And with the Himalayan region, I've always said our relation, of course, even though we are different countries, we share the same culture and the same religion. And as of today, in the 288 registered monasteries and nunneries under the Religion and Culture Department of the Central Tibetan Administration, there are about 42,000 monks and nuns, out of which 66% are from the Himalayan region, whether it's Indians or Nepalese or Bhutanese. So even though we are refugees, we are forced, people who are forced out of our country to move to another world, I want to tell you that we cooperate with the host nation also to provide education for that many number of monks and nuns. Everything provided for by the Tibetans, and another 6,000, let us say, local Indians and Himalayan students in Tibetan schools. So that would account to about 34,000 Indians, Nepalese, and Bhutanese that Tibetans are taking care of. So we receive help from the Indian government, but we also reciprocate backed by helping people from the, so it is a cooperation that needs, I think, long-term thinking. So now that 66% are from Himalayan region, mostly small children, we cannot decide for the Himalayan children. So for their future, we have talked with Jamyang Tsering Namgyal also to promote his idea of these children getting some equivalent certificate from the monastic orders that they are studying in, being part of a feeder school of the Ladakh Buddhist University. So those things are also happening. Just wanted to tell you for your information that this is the structure within which we function. And of course, there are so many limitations, including finance, but we have to work towards achieving all of that. In the meantime, it's my job to keep the community together. Last 63 years, His Holiness has been going around the world with his folded hands, and that is the reason why, even though we are very small in number, the Tibetan issue is very much alive. Now we need your support more than ever before. Now that His Holiness is aging and he will not be traveling much, now we need your support more than ever before. And now it's also incumbent upon the 130,000 Tibetans to see whether we can reach the goals set by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I will do everything possible within my human capability to take the issue forward, to work on it as much as possible, and to make sure that it reaches a logical conclusion. So thank you very much for your presence, and thank you for the honor.